At the edge of the world, where waves erase all memory, stands a lighthouse built not to guide, but to contain. For over a century, it's been silent, but now it stirs. Strange lights, vanishing records, a heartbeat beneath the stone. This isn't just a piece of forgotten history, it's a warning, and the deeper we look, the louder it calls. The structure stood alone, where the ocean met the edge of silence. Waves roared like whispers of 1,000 voices trapped beneath. Each gust of wind carried memories not its own. Above, a light spun in slow, haunted circles, touching places not meant to be seen. The foundation was not just stone. It was built on something older, something buried. The lighthouse wasn't constructed just to guide ships, but to hold something back. Below the main tower, the stairwell creaked even when no one walked it. The air grew colder as one descended, like the walls were remembering things that should be forgotten. The logs found inside were incomplete, often written in different handwriting, pages torn, words smudged, not by water but by something oily, something not of this world. Every floor carried a sound, a drip that never dried, a bell that rang with no source, a heartbeat in the walls. On the 5th night, the light above started flickering in a pattern. Not random, a language, a warning, but no one understood, or no one survived to translate it. The tides rose higher than ever before, waves climbing the cliffs like they were alive. The sea was not angry, it was waiting. A door, sealed decades ago with rusted chains and symbols carved into the frame, began vibrating. Not violently, but rhythmically. The same rhythm heard in the foghorn, in the waves, in the flicker of the light. All signs pointed inward, to something that never left. The lighthouse wasn't empty, it never had been. The fog rolled in thicker than before, not moving, but breathing. Birds stopped circling the tower, disappearing without a sound. At midnight, the sea stopped making noise. Complete silence, like nature itself was holding its breath. Windows, long nailed shut, cracked from the inside. Something pressed against the glass, from within. No footsteps were heard, yet dust moved. Walls dripped with moisture that tasted of metal and ash. Clocks turned backward for 7 minutes, then stopped. Light bulbs burst one by one, but only when the light was off. A whisper passed through the radio static. Still here. Shadows didn't follow light anymore. They moved ahead of it. The journal in the keeper's drawer now contained entries no one wrote, each line darker, each word less human. One night, the lantern room locked itself, though the key had rusted decades ago. Inside, the light continued spinning, even when unpowered. The lens of the lighthouse began glowing faint red, like an eye struggling to stay open. At dawn, the ocean didn't reflect the sky. It reflected something older. The birds returned, dead, falling from the sky, their eyes gone. Underneath the lighthouse, a forgotten trapdoor revealed stairs made of bone-colored stone. A smell rose from below. Ancient, sweet, wrong. Etched into the final step, do not call it by name. But the name was already whispered, in dreams, in wind, in waves. The sea knew it, the lighthouse remembered it, and now it had begun again. The light turned on at noon, without fuel, without reason. It cast no beam across the sea, only inward toward the tower's heart. Salt water began dripping from the ceiling, though the sea was miles below. Every surface smelled like drowned earth and burnt parchment. The old bell, silent for years, began to chime, underwater. No one could find the bell. Mirrors warped. Reflections stayed still while the viewer moved. The fog outside changed color, black, then green, then transparent. Through it, something watched. Not a creature, a presence. Every nail in the wood turned upward, like the structure itself wanted to let something out. Voices echoed from the pipes. Not whispers, sermons. The language? unspoken in 1,000 years. The rocks around the lighthouse began to rise at night, as if pulled by invisible strings. Their shadows moved differently than their shapes. The waves no longer crashed, they circled. Tides reversed direction every third night. When the light spun, shadows no longer shrank, they reached. The compass spun until the needle snapped. Underneath the foundation, something pulsed, as if the lighthouse had grown a heartbeat. Not fast, just old and waiting. Inside a sealed drawer, a map appeared. The ink glowed faintly. The sea on the map had no name, only a symbol, scratched in with something sharp. The symbol matched the one hidden beneath the lantern lens, and beneath that, something moved. The walls shuddered with a low, grinding hum, like bones shifting beneath skin. A shadow passed through the lantern room. No form, just darkness moving against light. The ocean surged beneath the cliffs, its waves now impossibly high, as if climbing toward the tower. Outside, the seaweed began to writhe, coiling around the rocks like something alive. The old keeper's journal, long buried, had returned to the desk, open to the last page. The ink was still wet, but the handwriting was different, jagged, like it was written in pain. "It calls" was the only sentence written, scratched violently across the page. And under that, a name, but it was blurred, like the ink couldn't hold it. On the fourth night, the lighthouse began to weep. Not rain, not dew, something colder. The walls were slick with a dark liquid, thick and greasy like tar. The fog rolled in faster than the eye could follow, thick as a curtain of dread. The light flickered once more, but this time it illuminated the tower's base, and the door was gone. The trap door was sealed, but the stairs were still there, leading down, deeper than before. A sound came from below, faint but growing louder. A voice, low and mournful, singing a song forgotten. The sea, the very tides themselves, began to sing in time with the voice. A chant, hypnotic, foreign. The air grew heavy with something unspoken, suffocating, as if the lighthouse itself was remembering its past sins. Every bell rang, not one, not two, but all of them. Their chimes out of sync, all crying at once. In the distance, a shadow rose from the ocean's depths, large enough to blot out the stars. The lighthouse trembled once more, a deep, resonating sound that came from beneath the foundation. And then silence, except for the pulsing beneath the stone, and the song that never ended. The sea was still. The lighthouse, though, was alive. The door appeared again, but this time it was not a door at all. It was a gaping hole, a dark maw, as if the lighthouse itself had swallowed the entrance. The air around it shimmered, distorted, like reality was bending. A sound like cracking ice echoed from within the walls. A figure, blurred and indistinct, moved just out of sight. The light, now completely still, cast long shadows that reached toward the hole. The stairs below seemed to stretch on forever, winding downward, spiraling into the void. Something breathed in the depths, slow, steady, like it had been waiting. The pulse beneath the foundation grew louder, vibrating through the floorboards, through the bones of the tower. The water around the lighthouse began to rise again, creeping higher, flooding the base. The sea was silent, but the waves were angry, slamming against the cliffs like they wanted to destroy the tower. The journal, left open on the desk, flipped to a new page by itself. Words appeared, written in a script that none had seen before. The ink was red, darker than any ink should be. "Come closer," the page read, "and see what was never meant to be seen." The wind outside howled, but the tower stood still, unmoving. A shape now stood in the doorway of the lantern room, though there were no footsteps. It was tall, impossibly tall, with eyes like pools of ink. The walls seemed to shrink, pulling inward, as if the space was closing. A voice, hollow and cold, whispered from the depths below, "It waits for you." The light began to spin once more, faster this time, faster than ever before. And as it did, the darkness beneath the tower reached upward, grasping at the very foundation. The tower groaned under the weight of something ancient, something alive. The lantern flickered erratically, casting shadows that seemed to twist and stretch on their own. The water surrounding the lighthouse was no longer water. It was a thick, black substance, like tar. The figure in the doorway remained unmoving, as though it were carved from stone. The air inside the lighthouse grew dense, thick with an unsettling cold that sank into the bones. A creak echoed from the floorboards, followed by a sound like distant chanting. The journal, now nearly soaked with the dark liquid, began to blur, as if being rewritten by unseen hands. The stairs, once solid, now seemed to ripple beneath the feet, like waves in the ocean. A figure, familiar but wrong, emerged from the fog, draped in shadows. Its face was twisted, a mockery of human form, its eyes sunken and hollow. The bells, silent for so long, began to toll once more, their ringing deafening, shaking the very air. The floor began to crack open, revealing a black abyss, a darkness deeper than the ocean itself. From below, a whisper rose, a voice older than time itself, calling to the lighthouse keeper. The walls, now pulsating, seemed to breathe, expanding and contracting with a rhythm of their own. A door appeared on the far wall, one that had never been there before, its surface covered in strange symbols. The ground beneath the lighthouse trembled, sending waves of distortion through the air. The light, now completely uncontrollable, spun violently, casting everything into chaotic motion. A scream, distant yet close, echoed through the tower, a scream that carried the weight of eternity. The ocean, once still, began to churn violently, as if a great force was rising from its depths. The lighthouse itself seemed to grow taller, stretching toward the sky, until it vanished into the clouds. And then, just as suddenly, everything stopped. Silence. The lighthouse was gone. The sea had swallowed it whole. The sea was calm again, too calm, as though it had forgotten the terror it had just witnessed. The lighthouse was nowhere to be found. No trace, no remnants, only empty cliffs and still water. But the air felt different, heavier, as though something had been left behind. A single, cracked lens floated on the surface, reflecting no light. The waves gently lapped at the rocks, whispering secrets no one could understand. In the distance, the sound of a bell tolled, faint and distorted, as if coming from the depths of the ocean. The fog returned, thick and choking, swallowing the cliffs in a shroud of white. For a moment, the land seemed to blur, fading like a memory in the fog. The air hummed, a low frequency that vibrated through the bones, unsettling and wrong. Beneath the surface of the water, something stirred, its shape a dark blur. A ripple spread outward, slowly at first, then faster, spreading across the entire sea. The light of the lighthouse, distant now, still flickered like an echo of a time long past. Somewhere, far below, a voice whispered once again, "It calls to you." And the earth itself seemed to groan in response, as if answering the summons. In the space between worlds, the lighthouse still stood, its light never going out, its heart still beating. Somewhere, deep within the dark waters, something ancient and hungry waited. Its name, once forgotten, was now known, and soon it would be called again. Not by the keeper, not by the sea, but by those who dared to seek what should never be found. The lighthouse would return, and with it, the storm. The sea was calm again, but it wasn't over. Not yet. The lighthouse, though gone from sight, still lingered in the edges of the world. Its light, its heartbeat, pulsed somewhere between the waves, beyond the fog. Somewhere, deep within the currents of time, the lighthouse awaited its next keeper, and it called out, over the silent waters, through the whispers of forgotten voices. Did you hear it? The sound of a bell, faint but unmistakable, tolling in the distance. It calls for you, for those brave enough to seek what is hidden, for those daring enough to face the darkness. But you have to ask yourself, are you ready to find it? To look deeper? To subscribe? To the mysteries that call from the depths? The lighthouse still waits, and when you least expect it, it will call to you again. All you have to do is follow the light.